Welcome to the Cash Practice Solution Podcast, sponsored by Esprit Health. We are the cash practice solution, here to support you and your team in building extraordinary relationships with your patients so you can have a practice that you love. We'll rescue your practice from endless insurance headaches and lead you to clinical and business success that exceeds your wildest expectations. It's time to run your practice instead of it running you. Welcome back to the Cash Practice Solution Podcast. Today, we're going to focus on recurring revenue. It's one of the most important parts of building financial stability into your practice. And I think with all the doctors that I talk to, their big worry is that they're going to be in financial trouble if they go cash. But man, if you get the recurring revenue thing down, you're going to be shocked. It is the lifeblood of a financially stable practice. It provides consistent income and reduces that pressure of like, I got to have new patients. I got to be marketing my head off. I got to go do all these things in order to keep it going. Once you start to get some recurring revenue, you'll see it's a completely different ballgame. Saying recurring revenue, it kind of sounds like maybe a little gimmicky. Actually, the reality is people need to be cared for regularly. They need to have somebody who knows them. They know their story. They know the progression of their story. It doesn't apply just to medicine. I have one of my patients who is he's not super entrepreneurial, but he's a very smart guy and he's technically a genius. So he started a cell phone company building tower materials and then putting Wi-Fi equipment in towers in rural areas. And he would sell that service, the installation component, as part of that deal. And he would make a few $100 and that was it. And then he came up with the genius idea of, hey, I know what I'll do. I want to sell them their monthly service as well. And he went from being, moderately successful, making a living, to being very, very successful and having a business that basically propelled itself once he had a few memberships, I think a few thousand memberships actually. But he built the business based on that recurring revenue principle, that one-time deal, kind of think like an urgent care visit. Somebody comes in and sees you and they have a sore throat or they come in and that's it. Versus building a practice that has some recurring revenue built into it. So when you think about that, there's a follow-up visit, which is certainly a very important thing. Every patient should have a follow-up for every visit, no matter what, whether it's a week, a day, a year. They should always have follow-ups. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about building treatment protocols that are consistent follow-up. They follow up every 3 months or every 6 months, and it's part of your protocol. Another thing that really works and really fits really nicely into a workflow of a cash practice is product sales. So whether you are interested in supplements or beauty products or healthy shampoo or whatever it is, it's genius. And you don't have to look at your schedule and be dictated to by, wow, I got some gaps in my schedule. I think I'm going to be in trouble if I don't get things moving. That's not true. In our practice, somewhere between 15 and 20% of our revenue is passive from supplement sales. I've been doing integrative medicine for a long time, so I have a lot of capability with that, but there's nobody who can integrate that into their practice, especially with the kind of technology that we use in our practice. Our technology assesses the patient's age, their symptom status, and then gives some recommendations about supplements. And you can basically process that information through the system and automatically provide those patients with what they need. So it's very seamless. And those patients, 80% of American patients are buying and consuming supplements. And if they're not getting them from their doctor, they're getting them from somewhere. And I would warrant that the quality of the supplements they're going to get from you or from me are going to be far better, far fresher, far more predictable than they're going to get from somewhere else, generally. And then there, of course, is the membership model, which I think is absolutely brilliant. A patient practice of about 500 or 600, a panel of 500 or 600 patients, for somebody who's just fresh out and who's just starting from scratch, it'll take a year or two, apparently. And for people who are in an established practice with 2,000 or 3,000 patients, which is the average, it can take months before you're up to that level. So 500 patients at $100 each, you wind up with about $50,000 per month in revenue. That feels pretty comfortable. Like, that's a pretty nice margin. That's $600,000 a year. And patients receive incredibly high quality care through DPC practices. Really, really amazing. if you look at your schedule and you've got blank spots and it makes you nervous, you might want to think about some membership modeling. There's a DPC Nation and a whole bunch of other groups that are really good and really helpful with the business development in that area. And you might want to think about that. If you're a fee-for-service doctor and you're not so comfortable with the DPC model, you just don't like the idea of having a membership, weight loss programs are another way that patients will consistently check in with you weekly or monthly. And depending on which model you're using, you can use specialty foods, you can use GLP-1s, you can use all sorts of different models, but have that same protocol-driven program where weekly or monthly, your patients will check in. They'll have their weight check in. You'll have some discussion about how they're doing, maybe some dietary counseling. And no matter what, patients who are regularly reinforced in terms of their weight loss process do better. From the very beginning of this podcast, we've been talking about outcomes and income. If the outcome of the patient is improved and your income is neutral or better, and I warrant it will always be better if you're doing a good job, then it's the right thing to do. And people who have weight loss issues need to be reinforced. So that's a great way to do it. Botox. Facial anatomy is very easy to learn. And there are maps that are used by different companies that provide Botox. But I think learning the facial anatomy is really important because once you're done with Botox, you're going to want to go to fillers. And fillers are a little bit more demanding, and you have to have really, really good training for fillers to do a great job. I like to do blocks, anesthetic blocks, so that it's not painful because it can be a pretty uncomfortable procedure, even with topicals. And then along with Botox and fillers, beauty products, natural shampoo without parabens and preservatives. And there's this massive national movement now about getting rid of toxins, right? Which is a beautiful thing. We need it. Why not lead the charge? Make it easy for your patients to say, hey, my doctor is way ahead of the curve and he has a great product line and it doesn't have to be super expensive for you to have a really, really good margin. Deodorant is a great example. Aluminum-based deodorants, they're not good for you. I mean, they work, but they also work to cause brain damage, I think. So you might think about that. So when you provide your patient with I like magnesium sticks and magnesium-based deodorants. In third world countries, people use milk of magnesia under their arms to keep from smelling bad. Isn't that crazy? So it works, and it can be very, very inexpensive. And then, of course, which near and dear to my heart, supplements. Supplements, nutraceuticals, can be used in lieu of medicine frequently with good knowledge. We use technology that actually assesses the patient's symptoms, uses validated questionnaires, comes up with a symptom score, and recommends supplements that are specific to the deficiencies that they're exhibiting. You know, what does seem to be a problem? Is there a musculoskeletal problem, a digestive problem? Is there a hormonal imbalance? All those things can be addressed at the first level with supplements. And if their problem exceeds that and they have laboratory findings that need to be addressed with medication, of course. And then, of course, for the fitness-oriented among you, fitness foods are great. So hydrolyzed proteins, plant-based proteins, all sorts of things they're just not readily accessible in the regular big box stores. You can have them in your practice, and nutrition vendors have those things available to all of us at reasonable prices, and we can prescribe them in ways that are incredibly beneficial. And people will come back after their first month because they're having great success, and they'll buy those things again. And instead of your schedule being full of patients, your bank account will be full of money from patients getting the benefit they need in passive ways. Depending on where you live, lab assessment is a great way to take care of patients, especially because I do a lot of hormonal care. I make sure that I check laboratory regularly. When I start a protocol, a month later, I check. I check every 6 months, not only because it's good medicine, but it's also a regulatory requirement. You should be checking people, especially with testosterone as a controlled substance. And you need to do it. And you should be charging for that, either the assessment of the lab when you study it or the laboratory work itself. And doing a good enough job with it, communicating with the patient that they perceive the value. You've looked at their lab and you have a comment to make about their process and progress. And then it requires training, certainly. It is not a complicated procedure for someone who has a reasonably good residency training program. You've done minor surgery. You're just basically sliding a trocar under the skin. And it's the dosing that requires a little bit of knowledge and experience, but that can be acquired really quickly. And it is a great recurring revenue source. Patients are so appreciative. You can change their whole world. You can take them off of tons of medicines for migraine, depression, low energy, just so many things, not to mention, of course, the whole sexual spectrum of care. And all of these services can be easily integrated into your regular care protocols. So rather than sending them out somewhere to get treatment for this, or to send them to the health food store down the street, or integrate these things into your care protocols, and then your patients are going to receive really good, continuous care from someone who they know really cares about them and knows their story. And you'll have a consistent income that will track with the hard work that you're doing to provide those patients with really what they need. These recurring revenue strategies, it's a little bit of a different business sense than the medicine you learned in your training, possibly. That actually you're not only a medical professional, but you're also a business person. And if you identify something in the business context that's going to give your patients what they need, and it will also help you to have a higher income, you should do it. And your staff, it should be really, really easy for them to quickly gain the idea that when someone's leaving your office, the question always comes up in our office, hey, did you need any supplements today? Were there any products that the doctor recommended that you haven't gotten? So our staff helps with that. And we're very consistent. In the room, we actually have a system where we can prescribe our supplements in the room so that the patient gets them. They immediately go to the invoice and the patient has what they need on their way out the door. So practice software is huge to help you automate that process. Also, to task, if there's a one-off kind of treatment that's not a recurring supplement, you put that into your tasks, because you can generate a patient visit and make $100 or $500 or whatever it is that you charge, or you can sell the supplements that the patient needs that they're going to buy at the store down the street instead, if you just think about it for a few seconds. And I'm talking about a few seconds versus a 20 or 30-minute visit. It's an extremely gratifying treatment, because the patient gets what they need without having to take more medication. And we're using safe and effective nutrients. And it's just a win-win. So when you create this culture of like complete care, where you're taking care of all of what the patient needs, all the procedures that they need, recurring basis if they need them that way, but certainly supplements, memberships, weight loss programs, those kinds of things, your financial stability will be a source of peace for you. Instead of feeling like, oh gosh, I'm kind of up against it, you can quickly start to see that you have the ability to have a regular income in a passive way. And if you can get 20% of your income from that or more, that's a gigantic win. It's worth the time that it takes. Like I said, technology really helps. If you have the right software protocols, and then you have your staff also get involved where they know what they need to do, it just makes a gigantic difference. So we're working on the $2 million practice, and I've taken you some distance into it. I haven't given you a ton of detail. We're going to work on that in upcoming episodes. I hope you found this to be informative and like a little bit inspiring, and meaning I think you can do this. I think you can succeed. It's more than just providing great care. It's about creating a sustainable business that gives you the ability to do exactly what you think is right. You'll have the freedom to choose and the power to heal. And you'll be doing what you love for years to come. And I just plan on you being successful. Thanks for joining us on the Cash Practice Solution Podcast, sponsored by Spree Health. But before signing off, I want to remind you of our keys to lasting success. Listen to your patients, learn their stories, and then love them with all your heart. You will be unstoppable. For more, follow us on your favorite platform or look us up at cashpracticesolution.com.